I'm Cheryl and this is Matt, and we're in the Rockies, and we're here to help you plan your trip to the west.
We recently took a 3-day trip from Moab to Monument Valley to Page, Arizona. In 2 other videos, we covered the things we did from Moab to Monument Valley and the things we did in Monument Valley. In this video, we'll cover things we did between Monument Valley and the Grand Canyon. Page, Arizona lies at the very top of Arizona, next to Lake Powell and the Glen Canyon Dam. The dam marks the beginning of the Grand Canyon, so this area is often called Grand Canyon East, though it is not part of Grand Canyon National Park. It's a collection of private land, Navajo land, and national monuments. Our first stop is Navajo National Monument, a lesser version of Mesa Verde National Park. This is a national park site located between Monument Valley and Page, Arizona. I kind of committed the usual tourist sin here in visiting this site, which I only allowed us 1 hour block to see Navajo National Monument. Now, in this case, that's actually about all you need to see it. They have one trail that leads down to an overlook of some Native American ruins. It looks a lot like Mesa Verde National Park. Not as small, but it's in this really cool alcove in the mountain. Just multiple layers of homes on top of each other. Really awesome. You have to see it from quite a distance, and so they do have some binoculars that you can look at it through while you're there. But if you have your own binoculars, it'd be better. The ones that they had there weren't really all that great. So bring your binoculars if you come. The trail to get there, to go out and back, is 1.3 miles. It's kind of downhill, so now we're hoofing it back up, so I'm a little short on breath, out of shape. But there are 2 other trails that you can do in the park. I believe they have some guided ranger hikes as well. Have a few overlooks. They have a campground here. But one of these national monuments that you've probably never heard of, they're kind of just out here in the middle of nowhere, but definitely something you should check out on your way between Page and Monument Valley.
Next up is to go see the very, very Instagram famous Antelope Canyon. Now there's actually 4 different access points to Antelope Canyon, but we are at the lower Antelope Canyon, which is surprisingly, actually, this is talking lower elevation, not north and south, east and west. This is an hour-long tour. You have to have a tour to access this. Oh, I guess it's like half a mile long, and it's very unassuming. Like behind me, it doesn't look like there's anything, but you go on some pretty steep stairs down to the bottom of it, and then you walk through. And some things to know about Antelope Canyon is it is beautiful scenery, unlike I have ever seen. I mean, the Instagram photos don't lie. It really does look like that, but it looks like that throughout the whole canyon. At parts, it's only about 1 foot wide. And some things we learned on this tour were that it constantly changes. There's flash floods that go through here all the time, and it will change the layout of the canyon. In fact, one of the places we walked through was new. It's only a week old because of a flash flood that had come through. They've had to bring in a crew to fix it. Lots and lots of photo opportunities. So I think this is a really great spot for someone to go if they love special photos, or you're just wanting that really, really impressive photo for your Facebook or Instagram. But my overall take on this was, I have to say I didn't like it. And I think the reason why is because I'm such an advocate for the national parks, and I believe that nature should be accessible to everybody, but Antelope Canyon isn't. It's quite expensive, over $60 per adult. Today the tour guide said there was about 1,500 people in, and so it was a pretty slow process. We were kind of trapped in there in a long line, so there's a lot of waiting. We did wear masks because that was part of the rules, and so that was a little hard because it's 100 degrees and it was hard to breathe in the mask, although we were allowed to have mask breaks. In my opinion, I really like the outside scenery the best, some of the Monument Valley and things like that.
Next up is Navajo Bridge and Lee's Ferry, both historically significant places in the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon is so big and long that it cuts the northwest corner of Arizona off from the rest of the state. This is called the Arizona Strip, and it's always been more connected to Utah than Arizona. Prior to modern dams and bridges, the only 2 places to cross the Colorado River between Moab and Las Vegas were the Crossing of the Fathers and Lee's Ferry. The Crossing of the Fathers was named after Spanish priests who crossed the Colorado River here as they were trying to get to California. It has basically been replaced by the Glen Canyon Dam, which forms Lake Powell, which now covers the Crossing of the Fathers underwater. Lee's Ferry was the more common place for people, horses, stages, and even cars to be ferried across the river. Today, you can still visit Lee's Ferry, which is still the only accessible way you can visit the Colorado River, not counting Lake Powell, between Moab and Las Vegas. We had a great time here playing in the water, which is insanely cold because the water is coming from the bottom of Lake Powell through Glen Canyon Dam. 48 degrees in the water, 110 degrees on the land. Grandpa and grandson are getting in.
This is our time.
Oh, going all the way under?
This is it.
Okay.
Don't get scared now. 3, 2, 1. Oh!
You want to go do the same? Do it. Oh! Good job, boys. Due to its accessibility, Lee's Ferry is the jumping off point for those famous rafting trips through the Grand Canyon. In 1929, the Navajo Bridge was built nearby, spanning this relatively narrow section of the Grand Canyon and eliminating the need to ferry cars across the river. The bridge formed the only connection between north and south side of the Grand Canyon. Okay, we're here at an interesting little roadside attraction. This bridge on the right here, on this side, was built in 1929. As cars got bigger and traffic got to be more and more, they ended up building a second bridge here later on in the same style as the first bridge. But they kept this one as just a walkway where you can walk over the Colorado and look down into it. The Colorado River is what carved the Grand Canyon. It's what is the lifeblood of the West. It's what the Hoover Dam dams up to provide water to just so many states in the West. Again, at Lee's Ferry, it's the only place today where you can drive down right to the Colorado River. This is a cool sight because it's common to see California condors hanging out here. These guys were almost extinct, but they've been a huge conservation story. They are often released into the wild near this location. This is an enjoyable sight and even has a visitor center to explain its history. Okay, up next is to visit the famous Horseshoe Bend viewpoint. This is just south of Page, Arizona. The river flows this way down. This is the Colorado River, flows down through the Grand Canyon. This is a really popular viewpoint, especially at sunset. You can hear all these people behind me. There's just a ton of people lining the edge of the canyon, and what you do is you just look down into the canyon. It's got the river that flows around looking like a horseshoe. One of the cool things is you can actually float that river, which I have yet to do. I've tried to do it a couple times and just kind of run out of time on our trips, but you can float the river down there. From up here you can see there are some river rafters down there. One thing to know is there's not that much fencing here, so you can see kind of a area here behind me where a bunch of people are standing. There's a viewpoint, but then people are just strewn along the edge of the canyon, and some of them just sitting right on the edge of the canyon with a sheer drop. So you know, if you've got little kids, be aware that there's not fences everywhere. The other thing is there's a huge parking lot. This has become so famous in recent years. There's a big parking lot, so plenty of parking for you. They will charge $10 to park, and it's about a quarter of a mile to walk out here. It is a really cool viewpoint. It's very accessible from Page, Arizona, and it is part of the Grand Canyon. I mean, what's not to like? You definitely want to come out here for a little viewpoint. Okay, the next thing to do is to tour Upper Antelope Canyon. So Cheryl and I were kind of crazy. We did 2 tours in one day. We did Upper Antelope Canyon and Lower Antelope Canyon. So Cheryl talked about Lower Antelope Canyon in the last one. We wouldn't recommend doing 2 in one day, by the way. We were doing this so that we could find out more about these tours so that we could help you. So we are going to do a whole nother video about what you need to know about Upper and Lower Antelope Canyon. So this one was beautiful, just like the one earlier. This one was really beautiful. It's wider at the bottom and it's more narrow at the top. This is the one where you get the famous beams of light coming down into the canyon. Again, both of them privately owned and run. Now Cheryl and I kind of felt like these were amazing hikes that had been put behind a paywall in a way. So the question is whether they're worth it, and the other question is which tour should you do? So we're going to address both of those in another video that we'll link to in the description. Okay, up next while we're in Page, Arizona is to visit the Glen Canyon Dam. So behind me here you can see the highway which crosses over the canyon here, and on the other side you can see the actual dam. Now, the Grand Canyon is bookended by two famous dams. The Hoover Dam is closer to Las Vegas, and it forms Lake Mead. It's the Lake Mead National Recreation Area. This is the Glen Canyon Dam, and it is on the upstream side of the Colorado River, so on the other side of the Grand Canyon, and it forms Lake Powell, which is called the Glen Canyon Recreation Area. So just downstream from me here is Horseshoe Bend. These dam sites are usually pretty cool, at least to me, not to Cheryl. She doesn't care for dams. but I think they're pretty dang cool because you can walk out on the dam usually and see way down in there, and then a lot of times they'll give you tours down to the bottom of the dam. They're always in these, well, at least here in this Red Rock country, they're always in these really scenic areas here. Have a big visitor center. Now, my understanding, this has been closed during COVID, so we're here today in the morning and it's closed. I'm not sure if it's closed just because of the time of day or if it's still closed because of COVID, but anyway, I mean, just two beautiful Red Rock areas with these cool dams that just give you, I think, for me, an appreciation not only of the canyon and nature, but also of just what mankind can do. Like, these are unbelievably huge structures that are built, both of the bridges and the dams. Pretty cool.
We are wrapping up our day in Page at the birdhouse. We have, oh my goodness, it's been 102 degrees today. We've done upper and lower Antelope Canyon and Horseshoe Bend, and we were pretty hungry, and our kids voted for us to go to the birdhouse. It was recommended to us by our guide on the lower Antelope Canyon, and it did not disappoint. It was delicious fried chicken. They had 3 flavors. They had honey, original, and spicy, and we got the original and honey, and the honey was delicious. The sides of macaroni and cheese was great. We loved it, and their fries had a little bit of kick, so that was good too. But super, super yummy dinner in a fun atmosphere and a pretty affordable place to feed your family too, so we really liked that. Now, Page has a couple other good restaurants. There's Big John's Barbecue that Matt's parents recommend that smelled amazing. We just let our kids choose this. There's also the New York Teriyaki restaurant that looks really fun. We heard that was also great, but it's a big riverboat in the middle of Page, so that's kind of fun too. So some good eats here in Page, Arizona.